and just got here.
How are you today?
I want to thank you for coming, and our meeting today is going to be maybe a little bit unusual in that this, I think, will lead to other meetings that will be in quite a bit more detail and talk about what we need to do. My concern here today, and the reason that I asked for this meeting, for the parties that are involved particularly, is that I have a friend who works in emergency planning in Santa Barbara, and I visited with him about what had happened, and it started off with the conversation that they had issued an evacuation notice, but they didn't do an evacuation order. And I suppose that's probably because that's what governments do, trying to be cautious and not get in trouble, maybe overreacting. But as a result, they had to send people out pounding on doors while the fire was at the back of the house. And it was not what they wanted to do. And so then the floods came, and today there's another issue, there's another evacuation order issued for Ventura and Santa Barbara counties today because of the heavy rains and the flooding that is probably going to occur again. So, we're seeing these weather events occur. Now the East Coast, of course, is in the middle of a blizzard, big one in Washington and New York and on the East Coast. So we all know all about that stuff. So I'm not a fatalist, and I don't think that things are unraveling. But we have some really professional people who are working here at the county who know what they're doing. I think almost everybody's up to snuff on these things. But we have some really good professionals who are in charge of emergency management, 911, and the whole gamut. We have an emergency operations center downstairs that I activated twice when I was mayor. It was really kind of fun, but it was also unnerving. But it hasn't been done for quite some time. And when Hal was mayor, he didn't activate it. He decided not to, and just kind of ran things from his house when the snowstorm occurred, whatever. So I still like Hal. He's a good guy. But what I wanted to do was to bring together people that are involved in the nuts and bolts of day-to-day operations of the emergency operations, the 911 and the other emergency operations and so forth in the county, to discuss preparedness. How do we notify citizens? Who decides if an evacuation is called? I don't know. If the patio starts to flood, is it the mayor that calls it? I don't know. I suppose. I'm not really sure. So we need to get our act together and know what happens. On a couple of occasions, and I'll quit talking and ask for comments instead. Glad you're here. We've had occasions where I've called Dr. Foxall and told him, for example, that 911 was down, and it surprised him. And so in an event of an emergency at that facility, something had happened with the cell phone had gone haywire in the system or whatever, like it usually does. And there would have been no opportunity to call 911, and so he needed to know that. And so he made arrangements with the Omaha police to be present on the site because members of the public would find out and it could cause a bad situation at the facility. And so, and then at other times the power was out. And I knew some people at OPPD, so I was able to call them at their cell phones. But this is not something that you should rely on some county commissioner. That's not the deal. We need to have a plan, and I think we probably have a plan, and I think it needs to be updated, if we have a plan. I can't imagine we don't. So that's the purpose of this, and this is a real opportunity, I think, for us to make some planning and probably involve other agencies, the NRD, certainly the City of Omaha, and any others that come up. So what I would like to do is to start off with something that's not exactly on this point, but it is an important part of our operations, and that is a review of the medical services at corrections. And we have some expanded problems with psychiatric care and so forth, but we also have an obligation. Inmates at our facilities have no choice. We have a huge responsibility. It's just as high a responsibility as it is at the Douglas County Health Center. The elderly there have no options, so when we render care, it has to be the best. No cutting corners. when we render care at the Douglas County Correctional Facility, no cutting corners, it has to be the best available, so, and we do that, we're committed to that. So, I guess you're on the first part of the agenda, someone is reviewing medical services, there's someone who wants to speak to that first?
I think Mark can give an update on where we're at.
Yep, we're gonna rebid the contract for medical services. We've had Correct Care Solutions for a number of years, sent them notice, and we are not gonna extend the contract for the next 7 months, and that gives us time to put the contract out for bid and look for a new provider. We've had some conversations with other folks in the community that might be interested. I think when the bid goes out, we looked at, I know last time we put the bid out, we sent an invite to CHI, we sent an invite to the UNMC. They didn't bid on it, but we'll do that again. Okay? I know, talked to Chris Rogers, and we had a conversation about whether a place like Charles Drew or One World would be interested in bidding on it. That's kind of interesting because a lot of people in community corrections also access services at a Charles Drew or a One World. So I don't know if they're in a position to bid on it, but it'd certainly be something we could potentially send out in the bid docs. Though I just don't know. I mean, that's corrections medicine is kind of a niche, but I'd like to see. And you know, it would be what, a med center or a CHI or a hometown place bid on it and came as the appropriate bid. That would be good too. It's their hometown folks. But if not, I have to go with whatever the bid says. But either way, we got a timeline set out, and the letter will be going out. We'll start the process.
How much do you budget for that? I mean, in your budget is.
Oh, I know.
What's the timeline again?
7 months.
7 months.
Okay.
That it's
That's from sending the
notice to them.
our RFP out to getting somebody.
And we're sending the note when?
I don't have that date yet. But we've all of the one of the hardest parts right now, the RFP. And got that done.
The RFP's done.
RFP's done. So we just need to make some tweaks to it, have legal take a look at it, and then get with Eric and get it out.
Are there any particular areas that we need to improve? How are we doing psychiatric care? Is that something going on?
Okay, there's like 40 things in my head.
Okay.
On the psych side. At one point, I thought, that's such a critical need for us. Should we bid it out separately? And then I had some counsel with some wise people. They said, no, probably not a good idea. So we're gonna bid it out. We're gonna put it out. My suggestion, put it out all together and let somebody, let the people bid on it. Because if you bifurcate it, I think that's more problems than it's worth. And then I had another epiphany. I thought, maybe we just ought to self-op.
Pardon me?
Maybe we just ought to self-op. And then I thought, I don't want to do that either, because that's tough.
We've been there.
We've been there, and that's not a good thing.
No.
So then coming back to and all this, I'm trying to figure out how can I get more resources and more expertise on the psych end of this, and I think the best thing to do is to put the bid out and see who puts the bid in, and write the RFP tight enough so that people know what we want. And I think it's how tight is the language in the RFP to make sure that people understand this is what we want in terms of psych services.
Commissioner Borgeson?
You know, we've been exploring the telemedicine options out there, and that may be something that we, take a look at. It could be for the psych, or it could be for the other, which frees up the dollars to do more for the psych. So either way, I think if we keep taking that step to look at where that would be beneficial for us, we probably could come up with some cost savings and increase in services.
Do you think you could, in the RFP, can you include a telemedicine component, you think? I mean,
I think we could. And I know that telemed is still new, but it's not that new. And what we've seen recently, it has really evolved in the last 5 years, maybe. And I think what it does, in summary, is I think it frees up some of the staff, medical staff time for the more acute people, because we talk about the rising acuity level of the mentally ill, but there's also the rising acuity level of the people that just come in that are sick. We've had 2 or 3 Narcans in admissions in the last couple of weeks. I'm looking at the OPD overnights, and they're using Narcan like mad too. It's coming. I've been talking about this for a long time, but the opiate use, they're Narcaning people on the street, we're Narcaning people in admissions, and we're just we're close to bad outcomes if we hadn't had them. I made a decision a couple of years ago to get Narcan down there in admissions so we could hit them with that Narcan. But the opiate problem is getting worse. The mentally ill people that come in that are self-medicating with methamphetamine because they can't get psychotropics, or meth is cheaper than psychotropics, that's astounding as well. And just had 2 or 3 meetings about that in the last couple of weeks, is how many people are coming in with psychiatric problems and they're using meth. Folks, it's terrible. It's terrible. So we're not a full-service hospital. We're a jail, and we're dealing with all of this stuff. And sometimes I think I have itself out and become a full-service hospital, but I mean, you're not gonna. That's not.
I think that's what it is actually, but it really is unbelievable what you do down there.
So anyway, I
Okay.
guess in answer to your question, I think we're going to try to phone up the RFP so we can enhance the psych services. I don't know how far away we are from a forensic mental health.
The RFP will be going out for the psych emergency facility from Region 6 here very shortly.
Good.
And we'll be able to partner with them.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rogers, may I have your permission to ask, I don't want to do anything out of line, could I ask Commissioner Borgeson to participate in the RFP at Corrections because she has this knowledge, not only of her previous career, but also just knowledge of the problem? Could I ask her? Okay with you? So, if you do that, I'd appreciate it. And if you take her, not under your wing, but if you would consult with her, I'd appreciate it, because she does have these ideas.
I can send you the draft of the RFP. Run a light meeting for the week.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Anybody have any questions or comments? You know, it occurs to me too that we should probably just take a brief moment to run around the table and introduce ourselves so that everybody knows who we're. I'm John McAllister. No, actually, I'm Mike Boyle, County Commissioner from the Sunshine District, number 1. Claire.
And his little sidekick.
Mary Ann Borgeson, County Board.
Joe Lorenz, County Finance Director.
Mark Foxwell, Director of Corrections.
Alfred Bloomingdale, County Administrator.
Mark Kraft, Douglas County Board.
Karen Butch, HR Director.
David Sleater, 911 Communication Center Director.
Paul Johnson, Director, Douglas County Emergency Management.
Whitney Shipley, Emergency Management.
Constance Meyerendorf, Clerk's Office.
Chris Rogers, County Board.
Diane Carlson, Deputy County Administrator.
Marco San Martin, Douglas County Labor and Legislature.
And the peanut gallery, please.
Person, Matt Overley, County HR.
Carol Diamond, HR.
Dan Ash, Douglas County Clerk.
Sam Bacon, student.
Where at?
That counts.
What's that? We should have a blue hat on. Okay.
Dallas.
Oh.
Incognito. Okay, well, I appreciate that. And that sounds like you were headed in the right direction. We appreciate that, Mark, very much.
Well, so I just,
Go
it's a
ahead.
lot, it's a lot. I think you heard me emphasize that at the council meeting, so,
Yeah.
we're trying to stay ahead.
Yeah, there's so much going on over there, it's unbelievable.
So, Mike, can I ask you?
Yes,
So, what numbers are you seeing opioid wise, and what would be the result? Because there was just a report at the Board of Health meeting yesterday that they had 2 deaths this month. They're starting to keep track of it. So there's been 2 opioid deaths. What are you seeing trend wise on just,
We're seeing more Narcan use in munitions in my place. And
what does that do to the makeup then? I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. If you got a, I don't know what like condition they come in when they're narcan.
you know what, they come in and we have, when that person comes in, we have an the off-street booking form. We ask them a bunch of questions at the window. And maybe they self-report, so maybe they don't. But once the intake in, they seem to be doing, and this is how it's gone, they seem to be doing okay at the point of intake. And then you get them in, pat search them, then you sit them down, and then next thing you know, boom, they're out. And that's why we put the Narcan down there in admissions. And the incidence of use used to be, a little bit far in between, but now they're backing up to each other. And we got the Narcan down there in admissions for that very reason. So if you don't get that Narcan, then your respirations fail, and then you've got it in custody dead. So we've been very fortunate that the staff has caught it, and got medicals down there, and the Narcan's down there, and you jump on it. But
What do you mean they're just like sitting in the chair and all of a sudden they like just fall out?
yeah. And you don't know. And a lot of them, they're mad at the police. They don't self-report. We ask them all sorts of different questions. We have some people that run from the police. They swallow stuff. They don't tell anybody because they don't want the police to know. And then they don't tell us. And then they come in and then they're out. And, or they want to smuggle it upstairs, so they swallow it and they'll stool it out later. And the bag breaks, and then you got those problems.
Okay.
any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. You have the next item too, updated hiring, the process, recruitment, retention, and corrections, and I don't know who wants to speak to that first.
Well, we were asked at the HR committee to go out and talk to some of the other agencies. So what's been tossed around to you is just kind of an outline of the information that we were able to glean regarding the recruitment selection process, the promotions, the types of jobs they have, if they have part-time on-call staff. We looked at their selection stats versus ours. We looked at overtime and if they're mandating it right now or not mandating it. We also looked at their promotional process and how that works. And then we looked at the retirement plan because that kind of came up last time too. So we figured we would try to cover everything we possibly could. If there's other things that you want us to go back and talk to the agencies about further, we certainly can do that. So
I think what I was asking about particularly was, I didn't have this in front of me, so I was kind of listening and watching what's on. But what I was interested in is, what other agencies are doing. The police and sheriff and Denver, I hear, flies people in and hires them in one day and all this sort of thing. Who does the quickest job of hiring staff?
Well, when we talk to the different agencies that we talk to, the sheriff, for example, they only do a recruitment class once
They what?
a year.
They do what?
The sheriff, they do a recruitment class once a year.
One.
Mhm. And their process is pretty lengthy because they utilize Morrow and Associates, and Morrow and Associates does recruiting for multiple agencies, and everybody goes through their written exam, and then they do their physical agility testing, and then anybody that passes, then they get notified, and then they put an application online with us, And then after the application is received, and then it goes back to the sheriff's office, so their process is very lengthy. As far as corrections facilities.
How late is it? How long is it?
The
Sheriff's.
sheriff's, it takes them probably, I think when it runs about, 5 to 6 months.
Okay,
I checked
Because,
with Omaha Police Department, they're 10 months.
10 months for Omaha?
Yes.
See, that's not on here, is it?
no, cause we just put the,
Corrections facility.
yeah, we just put the correctional facility on here.
OPD, 10 months.
All right. Okay, and Lancaster, how long does it take Lancaster?
Lancaster, when we talked to them, they basically said they don't have very little difficulty recruiting people because their number one source of recruitment is the,
Prisoners.
is a correctional facility
Yeah.
in Lancaster.
What length of time?
They indicated that from the time that they post the job until they are closed, because they do not do a written exam at all. And their application is done online, and then they have an inventory that's done online. They said it's pretty much a function of the department and how soon they can conduct interviews. And then the reference checks that they do, and the background screening, it sounded like their timeframes weren't a whole lot different than ours.
Okay, and how long
Except
is
that
that?
they reduce because of the written exam's not there.
Okay, how long has that been in Lancaster?
I think they kind of have an ongoing process, but it sounded like generally it was, about 2 to 3 months. Probably 2 months from the time that they did their application until they were in the door.
Okay. Is that what ours is, approximately? 2 months?
About 12 weeks.
Is there anything worth looking at Lancaster, outside of recruiting at the prison for?
Yes, actually, we've had several meetings and talked about it, and one of the
Okay.
things that we're going to do, stealing your thunder, but one of the things we're gonna do, and we talked a lot about this, is canceling the written examination and just go with the application process and then an interview process. And what I wanna do, you know, as an educator, it pains me to do that, but I think what Karen and I talked about is that we give it a shot, we evaluate what the outcomes are, and tweak or reintroduce the written, then we'll do it. But I'm good with this, at this point, let's try it without a written examination. Let's see if we can't get something through an interview process and a brief process whereby we assess the person's reading comprehension, writing skills, and then after that, we go to the interview process.
Okay. Marianne?
You know, one of the things, Karen and I, have talked about this actually yesterday when we met, and it's been talked about before, is working with Metro to come up with a corrections academy.
Oh, wow.
That, there may be, you know, some type of not real long, lengthy, a year maybe, or less, curriculum that we could get them to provide, and then, that would help if we're not gonna do the written, maybe that would start getting people more involved and interested in applying, and then we could, you know, maybe go from there, but we're a conversation with
Sure
Metro
is.
on it, just to see if it'd be worth, I know we talked about 911, you know, also, some type of a program through Metro for training ground for people, but it's worth maybe a discussion to get a group together and talk to them
That's
about.
a great idea.
You think it would take a year?
No, I just threw that out
Oh,
there.
okay.
Karen said shorter,
Because, yeah, they can probably do a
6 months.
certi-
Three,
you know,
6
or
months.
certification program and work it through. So
Yeah,
How long?
maybe
they can do it from 3 to 6 months. That's what I'm saying. It can be done that quick. You can, you know, it depends. That's a good conversation. You probably should add the Heartland workforce because they may be able to create a cohort around it and do it in partnership with a lot of people around it.
Did you, what about 911 being in that?
It was interesting on that Metro concept, I wasn't aware of that, but that would be a great idea. There is one high school around here who is actually starting a telecommunicator or dispatcher, call taker training within the high school, and they've reached out to us, and we said we certainly would participate and help with that. Now, that's with people that are in, you know, the last 2 years of their high school, would that be great? But if we could get a process going, ASCO actually has a basic telecommunicator course that can be taught in 40 hours. And it's very, very, very basic. APCO, APCAO, Association of Public Communication Officers. They're pretty much on the training side, they have established minimum training standards. And they have a 40-hour course, but it's online, or you can train the trainer, and we do have an APCO trainer within our staff, and so all of our emergency medical dispatch and our basic training is APCO. We meet those minimums, but of course, we have a lot more training that's more specific to what we do on top of that. But the basic training, there's a 40 or an 80-hour course that APCO provides, so. And that, it would be great to get out there if people are interested, they could see if it was what they wanted.
No.
Right.
That's the idea in high school too, is get some kind of exposure out here, saying, well, this is what we do.
What high school is that, Dave?
You know, I don't have it with me.
Is it here in the?
In the metropolitan area here, yeah, they actually, they were doing it, and they were just starting it. And they reached out and said, hey, would you have one of your people available to come in and instruct? Absolutely. But they were in the process of setting up some simulated dispatch and call taking equipment.
Great. Commissioner Rogers?
So, Mark, explain to me the difference between on-call and temporary.
May I ask?
Sure. Well,
The on-call are people that are just in a reserve pool, and when they're needed, they're called.
Okay.
A part-time person is an individual who has a set schedule and works generally the same schedule every week. So your on-call is just like a temporary agency that you've created yourself, that when you need somebody, you call them and you ask them to report.
So on-call and temps are the same thing?
No, temporaries could be through an agency, totally separate, and they might come in and work for a set period of, like, they have somebody that's gonna be out for leave, and they need somebody to work for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And that's the course of their time frame. Whereas the on-call, if they're short on a Monday and they need someone to come in, or they're short on a particular shift, they call a group of people to see who's available to come in. And they're just always there. They usually have other jobs, and so you usually have to have a pretty large on-call pool in order to find someone that's available. But a lot of times there are individuals that have a full-time job, but they're willing to work as an on-call for another organization.
So let me ask you this, is it possible then, even with this training idea, to do like the FedEx model? There's a lot of people out there, like, and I'm just using Memphis as a point, they got like full-time jobs, but FedEx is packed for part-time workers because FedEx offers benefits. I mean, can we do a on-call or part-time deal where, I mean, I know we don't want to get into it, but, you know, now in today's atmosphere, the benefits might be just as attractive. So you do a full-time job, you don't get benefits, but you work here and get the benefits. I mean, I'm just saying, is that a package you can put together that on-call may not be, it may be a different version of part-time that may be acceptable. So I'm just throwing that out there, because if you can train up enough core people, and I'm saying it right now because you got to go outside the box in some way, form, or fashion. So I'm just throwing it out there in that respect.
Well, we've already been through this with the union once, and if the only way I think that we will get the union to agree, and the union's going to have to agree to what we want to do, is to say that they can be union covered employees. So if you do part-time, they would have to be part-time but covered by the union. Or, I mean, I think that it's more likely they'd agree to part-time than they would agree to on-call or temporary. Because it's not just about people taking their overtime or people coming in and not being union. It's also about safety and security, because they want to make sure that whoever comes in not only is properly trained, but also understands the facility, understands the dynamics, understands the...
That's fine, but other than, what's the, okay, so they're part of the union, you just have more numbers, but it's not like it's a issue, is it? You just have more numbers.
Well, For us, no. For us, it's not an issue.
Well,
And
it's-
for us,
So I mean, is
we
there
have
fear of
proposed-
being overrun by part-timers?
Yeah.
we have proposed this, and Patrick has proposed it in the past, as I understand.
Well, when we proposed in the past, it was not to be covered by the union, which I can understand.
Well, I
why
thought
they
you
would
just
call
said
that.
to be covered by the union. I thought
But
that's what you
now-
just said.
I have
This
proposed
time around,
specifically
we
to be
proposed
covered by the
that-
union, yes.
What their expressed concern was, at least in public, was that it's a safety and security issue because you want to make sure that they're full-time, so they're there as much as possible and understand.
Yeah, but that argument's out the window because you got the state with part-timers and you got Lancaster with part-timers.
But I think that it's a great idea, and if we get the union to agree to it, that would be
Okay.
great.
I'm just, okay. I understand.
Yeah, and I think if, they're upset about the benefits, and so, hiring new people, are we offering less benefits to pension benefits to new hires than the present employees have? Is that,
No, I'm not saying benefits, I'm not saying pension.
well, different?
I'm saying
Well,
the
that's-
healthcare.
I'm just saying that's a real sticking point, so get ready for that to be on the table too.
No, I'm not saying pension, I'm saying the healthcare piece,
Yeah,
not the pension piece.
yeah. Well,
Well, it depends on whether you hire them part-time or over 20.
Commissioner Kraft has been patient.
Years ago, the sheriff's department used to run the correctional facility, and there were problems. But could deputies be used on call or part-time? I realize there are two different unions.
That changed the dynamic of the facility, and now you're integrating sworn officers with non-sworn people, and I don't know that that's a good mix. If you're gonna have sworn people, then have sworn people. If you're gonna have non-sworn, then have non-sworn. I would not advocate integrating the two. The cultures are different.
Commissioner Duda.
And the pay grade is considerably different. We run into this with entrance security officers. Anybody that's certified to carry firearms, you gotta pay them a lot more money.
Any other questions? Let's see, I'm curious too about these others. I'm glad you're talking, trying to figure out ways to kind of short circuit things. It's something a good idea. I met the community college doing those sorts of things. It's really very productive. That's good. I want to ask about, how about Potawatomi County? How long is their procedure?
Potawatomi does their written exam once a year, so they're only recruiting really once a year. Their process from the time that they start to finish, I am not exactly sure, we didn't ask them that, Commissioner Boyle. Because they just do it once a year.
I was just curious.
So-
I'm always curious about how long is the period? That was my question, really.
Okay.
Not how often do they test, but how long does it take them, if somebody walks in the door to have the uniform on? That's what I really would like to know.
Okay.
So if you'd ask them that,
We
I'd
can
appreciate
definitely
it.
go back and
All right.
ask that question.
And same for Sarpy, how about them, do you know? How long does
I
it take?
talked to them, I think they indicated that, when I talked to Linda Wells over there, she indicated that their process is pretty fast. But they're only hiring small numbers.
See, I don't care about the numbers. I just want to know how long does it, go back, if you would,
Yeah.
please, go back and ask them that question
Yeah.
that I wanted was, how long does it take from the time somebody applies to the time they're on the job? So if you want to do that with everybody, I'd appreciate it.
I can do that.
Because that's a big question to me, and if somebody says it's 40 days, then I want to talk to them for sure.
Okay.
Okay,
any other, anything else that pops out at anybody, Chris?
So, I guess Karen and Mark, I know I hear this argument from I can hear it and feel the argument from the salary round, but give me a realm on Sarpy in respects to, I feel like that's comparing a blue chip basketball program to an NAIA school.
It is.
It is.
Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, what is their size? I mean, it's only a race game because, one, I think their county dynamic is totally different when you start hiring correction staff. Their budget's gonna get tighter. They are very averse to anything spending wise, so that's gonna change the atmosphere. And their population isn't to that degree. I mean, I almost feel like your and I don't mean this bad way, the competition is different. So how long can this game play? I mean, we can play the salary game, which is fair, but this can only last so long because they haven't even begun to taste what it is to have this type deal.
Well, I think after being the HR director at Suffolk County, and their jail was run by law enforcement. So they can hire a lot of corrections officers for what they were paying sheriff's deputies to run the jail. So they have capacity as far as compensation. And right now, the other thing that is always a huge difference, and I'm a Sarpy County resident, and I was talking to Mary Ann about this yesterday, is that the level of crimes and the type of individuals that they have at the Sarpy County facility are vastly different than the diverse group that we have here at Douglas County, as far as the level of crime committed, the diversity as far as the demographics of the individuals. There's less homeless people in Sarpy County than there are in Douglas County, so it's really a completely different type of animal there than what we're faced with here. And so one of the reasons they in talking to Linda Wells, she told me that they didn't hire a single person since they've opened that facility that hadn't already been a corrections officer somewhere else. And it's because of the fact that they don't have mandatory overtime because they're still using their sheriff deputies to help cover. And it's also because of the fact that they don't have the same crime levels. And so it's, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's kind of like a country club almost.
Well, it
in
really
some
is, and the
aspects.
difference, I used to represent the civilian employees there, and it's totally different, and they were always, it's a different operation. I mean, a lot of the people they deal with are in the armed forces. I mean, it's just a total level of respect. They don't come up and call people names at the counter and stuff, and then buy their license plates, things like that. I mean, it's totally different. And the people in the jail, totally different, and almost totally different. So, I mean, it is, but we still have to compare it, just like the county attorney, whenever we hear from Mr. Klein about salary, it's always, what's Sarpy County getting paid? Sarpy's getting paid about, $50,000 more than he is, But that's the way it goes. We have to compare with them. And on Sarpy County, I think we're due for a huge raid coming, I feel, because they're switching over to civilian employees. And Hubbard is down there who left our place. And so he was talking to someone I know real well who smiled broadly when he said, we're getting ready to recruit. And I think that means a whole raid on our place. So we're really in for it, I feel and I fear. So anyway, but getting, we have to deal with who they are and what they pay because they're next door to us. Anybody have any other comments on the material handed out here? Is there a recommendation that you have for doing, you've been talking to Dr. Foxall, what do you think is part of the solution? Is it doing away with the written exam and anything else?
Well, I think a couple of things that we've talked about to speed the process up is that we would try to do away with the written exam, replace it with an assessment that's probably actually more predictive, or we believe it may be. And it would only be given to people that actually interview and they feel that they might be a good candidate. That narrows down the number of people, it will speed up the process. The other thing that we had talked about is with their medical provider, having them take over the responsibility potentially of doing the physical assessment testing, which maybe will free up and make more availability to get those done in a more timely fashion versus sending them to one CHI clinic right now to have a particular type of physical demands test done. And he was going to be checking, I think, with the medical provider to see if they would be able to do that. Based upon the demands that are outlined in the job description. So we're hoping that that would also speed up the process. As far as everybody we did talk to, everybody's doing reference checking, at least as far as work references, and they're all doing background checking. Right now that's done by OPR at the corrections office, so I think those are all pretty much the same, and it's just always comes down to the bandwidth capacity of availability of staff to do those things at corrections. So.
I'm curious about, I was talking to someone who took the application to be an Omaha police officer, and he told me that, well, he was close but didn't make it, but he also told me in a conversation a little bit later that someone that he knew who had applied who was turned down because he had lied about a criminal offense, and it was a misdemeanor. And the police came back to him and said, we'll let you in anyway. So they are taking people who do lie on the exam. What are we doing? I mean, I don't wanna, I mean, what are we doing about that? I mean, are we willing to
I would have to defer that.
do the same, well, yeah, but I just wonder if we're doing the same thing, are you consider it, or is that too far, is that a bad
We
deal, or?
look at, you know what, we look at recency, and we look at frequency.
Okay.
And, you know, people have had some issues and a history in the back. If it's old, we'll deal with that. I mean, we got people, literally, we got people that were in jail 6 months ago applying for a job. So, yeah, I'm not taking those guys.
Right, okay, we'll refer them to
What's that?
But every cycle that comes up, several people that just got out of jail, and maybe they think their experience is such that they parlay it into a job. So those people, absolutely not. People that have had some minor criminal history, as DUI or something, 2-3 years ago, yeah, we'll take a look at that. And I'm looking at the pattern of behavior, and I'm also looking at what your job is. And I'm also looking at the age that you were when you got there. We try to take all those things into consideration. So, yeah, if they've had some issues in the past, yeah, we'll take a look at it.
I don't know if any of you saw the story about the bank robber from David City, Nebraska, in 60 Minutes, who robbed the bank and went to federal prison, yeah. And anyway, he went through the whole system, the whole deal. Anyway, he educated himself and became a lawyer, and eventually worked for Cockle Printing down here in Omaha on Douglas Street, and which does briefs for lawyers. And he ended up going to Georgetown, and actually he teaches at Georgetown, and he's coming to Omaha to speak at some event in the near future. But that's somebody who obviously kind of got recovered from being a bank robber to a professor at Georgetown. So anyhow, there should be second chances, I guess, and I'm glad to see that you're doing that. Any more we need to discuss on this? I think I'm glad to hear you two are collaborating and talking about that, because that's a good thing. And anything we can do to help, let us know.
We sit the next class Monday.
Okay.
Monday. Okay, yeah, I'll sit the next class Monday, and I'll put it in the new rec with the new protocols, no written test on the front end. So the new rec goes out soon for the next class, which we hope to start, not April, probably May, but as quick as we can turn it around.
Okay.
So 5 weeks for this class on the 26th, and then we got another class again coming right behind it.
Okay, keep us informed, that's great.
But again, the bigger issue is we get 200 apps and trying to squeeze out 15 people. We thought we had 20 in this last class, but then when you do the background, you got people coming up on inmate calls, telephone calls, talking to inmates here, and it's not good, or you talk to the reference checks, and you got nasty attendance problems. That's not good. I mean, people that come to work. We got people that are visiting inmates. But then the social media stuff is just, you check the social media, and you see this thing on social media that is really inappropriate. So that mixes them out. And we just gotta have a class in high school about what not to do and say on social media, and that's problematic too. So it's just this generation of people coming through. I've never seen anything like it.
Pretty crazy. But on social media, before Commissioner Borgeson wants to ask a question too, but I want to quickly ask you, are you doing any recruiting using social media? I mean, stuff that's accessible?
Yeah, we got the COA has got stuff out, and we got stuff going on county websites. So
Yeah, we're using Facebook. We've been advertising for corrections officers for probably 9 months on Facebook, and we've been doing Twitter advertisements.
How about Indeed?
We don't use Indeed as a job board right now. We can. There's a cost to that.
Oh, there is, okay.
Yeah.
Well, someplace it's, reasonable, I think you ought to consider it, at least, maybe. Marion?
I was just curious from ongoing tally, we were short 53, I think, the last time that we talked at our HR committee meeting on this. What do you think it is today with the classes? I think there's been 2 classes so far that have come since then.
We're still in the high 40s.
Still in the high 40s.
We're still losing people for different reasons, resignation and otherwise.
But if it's gotten smaller, we're heading in the right direction. Barely.
Really?
Any other questions or comments?
Retention becomes an issue.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll rely on everybody who's involved in this to, first of all, get those figures on how fast it is and all that stuff. The other thing is that you're talking, that's great, and I like what you're suggesting, that's a good deal. Let us know what else we can do. Okay. Now, let's see, we've got, and as far as, well, I guess we'll move on to, well, yeah, we can't really talk about negotiations here, we shouldn't do that, but that's something, well, I'm concerned about the salaries, if we're making any progress on the salaries over there.
They're gonna be meeting the union and our people at 10:30 on Thursday. So the union has gotten back to us. They're gonna meet, sit down and go over our proposals so they can fully understand.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Okay, well,
And I didn't know if you saw the back page, but we got the salary to pay information from all of the agencies.
yeah,
And that's a little different because keep in mind that most of those jurisdictions only have a correctional officer, and if they don't split between one and two.
I'm sorry, that we only have correctional officer, they don't have
Right,
classes?
they don't have a one or a two, they just
Yeah.
have a correctional officer.
Or they call it detention officer, but yeah, the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to ask, are we trying to recruit from the East Omaha facility for the state, or are we trying to get people from there?
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Okay, but I mean, do we have a way of contacting them, or you know, put a billboard out front? Kind of like that movie in Missouri, you know? Anyway,
Unfortunately,
Trying,
these-
you know, I'm not ashamed to try to recruit from brother or sister
it's
agencies.
one of those Statue of Liberty people holding the sign. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much. Our next item is what I was talking about at the beginning of the meeting, really was discussion of emergency preparedness. And I think it really involves both of those departments particularly, but Paul, I'll let you go ahead and start if you would, and then we'll follow through with 911. David?
Well, just based on your introduction there, you mentioned a couple of different things. One of the things that you talked about was evacuation authority. Evacuation authority in Douglas County rests with the chief elected official. So the chief elected official for the jurisdiction is the one that has the authority to order the evacuation. And
What's the title of the person again?
chief elected official.
Okay, and who's that in the county?
Well, for the
Chris?
yeah,
The
within-
chair?
Yeah, the chair here.
Big guy down there.
Okay, well, that changes all the time, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, it does. So anyway, yeah, that's the way it's done, and except, of course, within a city jurisdiction, it would be the mayor.
Yep. So I can only order Marianne and Claire's districts to vacate. I can only order Claire and Marianne's.
So and there's you talked a little bit about, you mentioned voluntary versus mandatory evacuation. You know, what's the difference? Primarily, the difference, based on the state guidance, is the fact that when you order a mandatory evacuation, you're responsible for the property, whether in the absence.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Who is?
The chief elected, the jurisdiction is responsible for the property under a mandatory evacuation.
The property, what property?
If you order somebody out of their home, you're responsible for the safety and integrity of that property. A
Okay.
voluntary evacuation, you list the voluntary evacuation, they decide to leave, they leave. I was told, I've never seen this in writing, but I was told that SARPI, when they issue a voluntary evacuation, then if they call 911, and 911 has to go, and first responders have to go get them, they send them a bill. That's what I was told. So I guess that was one of the situations at Bensall Island that came up years ago. Was telling people to get out, and they wouldn't get out on the law. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, but, I mean, in terms of the emergency preparedness, we have our plan, and that plan is for, it can be inserted for any kind of natural disaster, and we continually upgrade that, correct?
Absolutely.
As we, year to year, we kind of look at it, and if there's things that changing from the state that comes down or the feds that come down, we automatically change or update our plan.
Yeah, as far as the plan goes, that's absolutely right. It's the LEOP, the Local Emergency Operations Plan. FEMA requires that we have a local emergency operations plan that covers the threats that we do have. It's what I call, it's an empowerment plan, all right? So you don't get into the detail of a procedure, but it's an empowerment plan. Who's empowered to do what? It's very important to have that when it comes to a disaster. And so it's spelled out in that plan. It's updated every 5 years. Our next due date is 2020, and we're already starting to collect things in that need to be changed for 2020 and get it updated. A lot of that is technology related and things that didn't exist 5 years ago that exist today. So and I will say this, I think in 2020 we're probably going to see a pretty good wholesale change of these LEOPs across Nebraska, not just ours. There's going to be some new planning software that's going to be used, and so they may not look the same as they look now. We'll have to see how much work is involved in the change.
Commissioner Morgan?
Two things. One is, would it be good for maybe the commissioners at some time to come down and go through what, occurs?
That'd be wonderful. If the down, we don't get very many, we don't get any visitors down there.
So I think, I think we should, I've done that before, when I worked for Mayor Boyle and was his understudy.
That translates to when he beat me.
But why don't you think about when's a good time? Give us a couple dates when you'd like to set it up.
Yeah.
If it's May, don't care. I want to do it when it's convenient for you and just pick out the time that you want to do it. The second thing I've mentioned in respect to your judgment on this, and you don't have to answer, is if there are some things that should be implemented now or 6 months from now, come to us and tell us that instead of waiting until 2020. In other words, I know technology is constantly changing, but there could be some things you've heard about that you say, I'd like to do it sooner. I don't want to wait 2 years and say, darn, if we would have had that in place, it would have helped us, on
Thank
what
you very much for
occurred.
that. I appreciate that very much. 'Cause
Okay.
we're downstairs.
And I'm only speaking
Well,
as one commissioner. Some others
I know.
occasionally disagree with me, but that's what I'd like to see you come to us. We respect what you do
Well, thank you for that.
and need.
We get things that come about us all the time. Emergency management. I tell people this is the most exciting job I've ever had, and I'm serious about that. It is. Things are changing all the time down there. They change for us federally. They change for us at the state. They change for us at the local level. And a lot of it's just it's keeping up with things that are happening. But it's not just that. There's so much turnover in police and fire and other places. It's just, and it's up to us to assess that readiness. And so it's things are changing, and there are things that maybe it wouldn't require a wholesale change, but things that we want to put in that LEOP for 2020 that's not in there now.
Okay. So we'll look forward to some emails to all of us. And then if there's some others that want to attend, they can. But I think it'd be of paramount importance to do that sooner rather than later.
It's a good idea. I want to ask a couple questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
So, I guess what I wanted to suggest is I think the board needs to, just like we blocked out that 3 hours for strategic planning, you probably need to block out 3 hours, because I want the board to have a tabletop. Because really the last significant thing that happened was the flood, and I asked to come down there, and, it's our employee, but, Subtle's running the thing.
Yeah.
And I guess the question I have in a fear situation, I got a vague deal of it. The question I'm scared of getting somewhere is, if an incident happens, what do you do? So after step 1 or 2, I'm kind of lost, and I think all of us need to probably yearly go through a tabletop to kind of feel each situation and get an idea of what's going on.
You just follow Whitney around.
Because my greatest fear is you get a call one night and you have to show up downstairs in that room, and I'm like just sitting around not knowing what the hell to do.
Well, I don't know if you do know what the hell, and nobody really knows what the hell to do. I mean, the trouble is that, it depends on what our plan is. They're pretty, I think, pretty clear, channels of communication. Supposedly, there's some of them that are not used, which I think is ridiculous, but I think we need to follow the plan, and that's why, with this thing, before it even gets updated in 2020, the questions you asked are excellent questions, because, a lot of times there just isn't a, when, for example, the power went out in the neighborhood, in downtown, there's no plan to say, well, who calls who and who. I mean, I just found out, and I happen to have a cell. That's ridiculous for me that's not right, So, and it's not good procedure. It should be something different, and I'm not sure if anybody else was even notified. So, I mean, we need to know. That's one of the reasons I called it. And what you suggest is absolutely on point. It's very good. I like it. So, but I have a question, for example, going back to what you said about the chief elected official. When something happens in the county that happens to be in the city, the county's out of the picture. Is that correct? It's the city of Omaha and the mayor.
And it's their resources.
What?
And it's their resources.
Yeah.
They usually respond.
Okay. So, that's.
But you are called in there
Oh, yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
So technically, what does that mean? You become under her control?
Well, let me give you an example. Most recent one is Cambridge Hill Apartments. All right. When there's a 3-alarm fire, 911 notifies me at home or wherever I am.
Yeah.
And so I respond. The reason I respond to that is that I go up there and make sure that those individuals who are in that housing complex, if they're displaced, is the Red Cross there? I mean, that's a key point. If not, or if there's so many people that the Red Cross is saying we can't shelter all these, then I have to make sure that a shelter is arranged and get those people temporarily housed in a sheltering situation. So that's just one instance of that. That's kind of on the response side. More importantly,
Who calls you?
911.
911 does, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times the incident commander at the scene, whether it be police or fire, will tell the 911 dispatcher, get a hold of emergency management.
Okay, that's good.
And they'll call and get me. And,
Okay.
And if I'm not here, if I'm out of town, our agency is very structured in the fact that when I'm gone, somebody's going to have the con, and it's Whitney. And when Whitney's gone, it's Aaron. I mean, somebody's got to be here all the time, ready to go.
Does it ever get down to Mark Kraft? No.
We can write that.
Sorry.
So it's not just weather events. We're very busy during the College World Series. We're down there all the time, and especially with the swim trials coming up at the same time. That always presents such a challenge for us.
Okay.
But anyway, it's not just
Right.
weather.
Okay. And I have a question about, you talked about we, and Mary Ann was kind of chiming in too, that we will redo this plan. Who's we?
Well, the plan, the local emergency operations plan, it's my responsibility to get the plan done in draft. Right now, when I get it done in draft, that local emergency operations plan actually has city plans in it. So I've got to take that up to the cities and make sure that all the mayors are signing off on their plans. In other words, do they agree to institute those plans in their cities? And so those have to be done.
In the whole county?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the plan isn't official until the chair of the county board signs off of it.
Okay, but who's the we in this? Is there somebody else that gets involved? I mean, it's the cities have some say about approving what you put together.
It's health, it's fire, it's public works, it's parks and rec. I mean, there's a ton of people.
So you bring all those people together?
Oh, yeah, because they all have roles in there. If you read the plan, they all.
Hospitals.
Yeah, it's
Hospitals
just
too, and all that.
hospitals,
Okay.
Red Cross.
So they are the we.
Yeah, and it's very. It takes a lot of time.
Okay. What about? Did you have a question? Okay. What about? No one's allowed to raise their hand or scratch their head while I'm here. Easily distracted. Anyway. How about your chief? Okay. All right. I wanted to ask, what are we doing? What is our ability to warn citizens? And we've talked about this in the past, where other communities have cell phones, where operations where if there's somebody loose with a shotgun out at Horace Mann School, that the police can trigger software that will notify all the people in that certain parameters on their cell phones that there's a person at large with a shotgun, all that kind of stuff. Stay away from the school or whatever. do we have anything like that, or is that practical? Does anybody do anything like that?
Yeah, great question. In fact, you get asked that question a lot.
Yep.
There's different locales are doing different things, and just to kind of give you an overarching thing, there we have about 7 or 8 different ways that we notify people / inform people. You know, and that those 7 or 8 ways would include local media and things like that. But there's some fundamental things that we're using. One is some communities have, you know, we try to encourage people to download apps, all right? I've got an app on my cell phone, and so when there's a missing person or something like that, you know, not only do you get an Amber Alert, but they don't qualify as to the level of an Amber Alert, they're just a missing person. Anytime police would send out an incident like that, I get it on my cell phone.
Yeah, ping.
Ping 4. Yeah, it's on ping 4. So if you know, it's only when they choose to send out the alert that you get it, but nonetheless, that's what it is. The other type of system, there are 2 more additional types of systems out there that we don't have. One is a landline system. Landline phones, so that a vendor can sell you a package, and I get these frequently, where they sell you a package for your jurisdiction, and if you choose to purchase such a package, you can send out a message, all right, send it out on the internet, and your cell phone rings, and you pick it up, and you get this recorded message saying, you know, a tornado's been sighted, or we have an active, some kind of pre-recorded message. You can do that, all right.
That's a landline?
It's on your landline telephone, or whatever, yeah.
You said cell phone, though.
Let me talk about cell phones. They're a little bit different.
Oh, you just said cell phone.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, you're talking about.
I've confused you. I'm
the
sorry.
warning goes out over the landline.
Over the landline. So there's a landline system you can buy.
All 7 landlines. Okay.
Yeah, that's about the right it is too.
Right.
And you bring up your excellent point. The number of landlines is just going down exponentially. So we're not. Those salesmen are hard charging, but they're not selling much. The other part of that, of course, is the cell phones. All right. Now, the cell phones can be notified in a similar way. All right. They can be notified live, where you get a live voice, or it can be a pre-recorded voice on a cell phone. Those are enrollment systems. So they're also sold. They run about 35 cents per person who enrolls. So you can have, if I enroll my phone, I get a hold of this vendor and I enroll my phone, now I'm going to get those emergency messages. So any message that we would send out, whoever's enrolled would get the phone.
Do you send any messages out?
No, we don't have an enrollment system.
Okay.
All right, because of the cost.
And it's 35 cents per person,
Yes.
per month,
Per year.
Per year?
Per year. So if you had 10,000 people, it'd be $3,500,
And
but we got a lot more people than
Who's
that.
supposed to pay that? The government?
Yes, whoever pays the vendor, you know. So, but I will tell you, even those systems are going away. They're going away because of what's been instilled now called WIA and IPAWS. IPAWS is the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. This is a FEMA FCC system that's out that, under the 9/11 Commission, this is a new way of notifying everybody. All right, so we are trying to make this as uncomplicated.
What's the acronym again?
It's IPAWS, APAWS.
APAWS?
Excuse me, would you bring up that our website? Let me show you on the website
okay.
as well.
Better.
Yeah, it's IPAWS with an I, not A. There we go. Mouse, there it is.
Sorry if my fat head's in the way. What's the password? Oh, never.
Oh, I'm getting too old for this. Is there a general user to sign in for? Or?
No, that should work. I should put your password in. Ah, that's a good sign.
David, do you have something for this today?
It's thinking.
I'll
Maybe you
wait.
could explain the other half of it if it
Well,
goes out.
yeah,
while
let
I'm
me
doing
explain that while she's doing that.
Okay.
IPAWS is an integrated system, such that the way this works is that we have software that we type in the message, we can type in the message and send out the message. I say we, 911 can do that, we can do that. You send out the message, and the message goes out, and it's not really a text, but it shows up as a text on your cell phone. And if you ever got an Amber Alert on your cell phone, that obnoxious buzz, that's what our message is too. It comes out the same way on your cell phone. So that's what happens under iPods. Now the way it works for us is that we send out what's called a wireless emergency alert, which is a piece of iPods. In other words, that is text only. But if I send out an iPods message, not just the WIA portion, but the iPods message, then the radio stations get that, the TV stations get that, it's a crawler on your screen, the whole 9 yards. Okay, let's, this is our website, as you know, and we're going to make some changes. Go put on the left on the preparedness and outreach, and we're under community notifications, second bar down, hit that, there you go. All right, why don't you scroll up on that. All right, and then it should say wireless emergency alerts, the third one down. Oh, there you go. Okay, it says what are wireless emergency alerts, and it tells you about it, and if you click, I'm going to try this. All right, this is just frequently asked questions. All right, it tells you what they are. You know what's interesting on this website, I know it's a pretty content-rich website. I had a college professor call me from Jacksonville State, and he says, you know, I teach an orientation class to emergency management graduate students, and the first question I ask them is, what is emergency management? And I get this class, he says, we take up the whole class. He says, then I go to your website. I say, this is emergency management. Look at all the stuff you're responsible for. And he says, it's the only site that we use that for, but anyways. I'm not,
Thank you. That's
anyway, okay, hopefully this will spool up. All right, there's our new,
He's from Fox News, isn't he? Oh.
oh, is there a
I
speaker?
think he's a cameraman
Is
at
there a
Fox
speaker?
News.
Who is that? That's not the new FEMA director.
Yeah, it's the new FCC director.
guy.
Oh, I was gonna say. The guys from Alabama.
Wireless phone companies serving the majority of the public, including the 4 nationwide carriers,
This is only a minute long.
voluntarily
That's right.
participate in the system. The FCC sets certain technical and operational rules for the wireless companies that participate. So here's how it works in practice. Government agencies send the alerts to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. FEMA then sends the alerts to the wireless providers, which then push the alerts in turn to mobile phones in the impacted communities. The FCC is taking action so that those alerts can be targeted even more precisely to the affected locations. Now, wireless emergency alerts are not technically text messages, but they generally include text and may include web links. Since this system began in 2012, more than 33,000 alerts have been sent to inform Americans about emergencies, including severe weather, evacuations, and Amber Alerts. We encourage consumers to heed these warnings, and we will continue to work on further improvements to this vital system.
Thank you.
So would we get those on our cell phones?
Yes, and what
All of
happens,
us?
we define the alert area, or 911. We define the area of alert. So if the alert is, I'll be honest with you, probably the most common potentially alert would be in Mary Ann's district there, flooding, ice jams along the river. When those ice jams occur, we got campers out there, that's a very big concern, and they happen so fast, so you gotta really watch it. And so we'll send out an iPause message, or wheel alert, around, we'll geographically define on the map where we want that message sent to. And we hit the send button, it sends that message to all the cell phones in that outlined area. Just keep in mind that depending on the vendor, if there's a cell tower in that area, it's a ping that goes out like this, so there'll be some overreach beyond the actual notification zone, but
So would Commissioner Boyle get that even though he's not in that area
No.
because he's a commissioner?
no.
Okay, so-
Now, that's what the commercial companies sell.
Oh,
The commercial
they sell
company,
that.
they sell that capability, so that if you send an area, if you notify an area, then other people that you want to get that notification, you can do that.
Okay, now wait a minute, let me go back a little bit. When you do that for Mary Ann's area, what are you using, and?
Computer,
how-
just like this.
Okay, so you pull this up, and you have the ability, and you have done this, send warnings out to people in areas that may flood.
We send demos. And we haven't sent a warning out because we haven't had that. We haven't had the issue. But
You haven't had a problem?
No. But if we have an issue, it's gonna go on. Yeah.
Okay, so, and to whom do you send it, and how do you get their cell phones? Is it because they don't give you the cell phone?
We don't
you're
need
able
it.
to get it?
That's the beauty of this.
Tell me about that then. How do you,
Yeah.
that's what we need to get to for the whole community.
Yeah, it's geographically
We
based.
have it, don't we?
Yes, we have it.
Okay.
See, that's another thing too, is that you have to get approved by the FCC and FEMA to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We put our application in probably 2015, maybe 16, and that was one of the first meetings that Commissioner Kavanaugh was at. I just remember he was newly elected back then, but that's...
He paid the application fee. Thank you, Jim.
So but anyway, it took a long time. You put in the application and you have to wait, and
Okay.
there's a plan and process, blah, blah, blah. So all that comes to fruition. You get what's called a COG number, your approved COG, COG, which means a collaborative operating group. And only about a third of the major metros in the United States have COG status. So it just takes a while to get.
Okay. Let me get back to, because we have to have 911 here too pretty soon.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It's important, but what I'm wondering is, we have the ability, if I understand it correctly, we have the ability to do this now. If a tornado is coming toward Omaha, Douglas County, whatever it is, eastern Nebraska, you have the ability to warn people inside Douglas County that a tornado has been sighted at Springfield or something. Is that correct?
Well, you're getting those already from the National Weather Service.
Well, I don't have them on my phone.
Oh.
So I mean, are you?
Well,
putting
you'll
them-
get them. I mean, if you're within that targeted area.
I'll get them anyway?
You'll get them anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're in the target.
It's an
Yeah.
override.
If you're not,
Yeah.
then you won't
It-
get it.
You know, I tell you, just like the commissioner said, it's really up to the providers, and the major providers are offering the service. So if you have Sprint and Verizon and
And
T-Mobile.
when you say offering, you have to buy it from them?
No,
Why?
no, they've got to be willing to provide the service to their customer.
Okay.
And
And
so-
what is the service called?
WEA, W-E-A.
WEA,
Yeah.
okay,
So the cell phone providers are providing WEA.
okay.
And I will tell you this is changing drastically in November of 2019. All right, so in November 2019, this whole program changes drastically. And when I say drastically, it's improved immensely. Just like the commissioner says, instead of that ping reaching out, now it's going to be GPS based on your phone. All right, so now they're going to be able to target right around a school or right around a building. And so in November of 2019, that's another thing why these vendors are selling their commercial things so heavily now, because they know in November of 2019 they're going to be obsolete, because the federal free service is going to be, it's going to target just what you want. It's going to increase the message length 3 times. It's really going to be as a strong bit of it. It's going to have Spanish interpretation.
What was the site you were trying to bring up when you brought this up in the first place? IPEA or something? IPEA
Oh,
or
it's the FEMA site for questions and answers. So it kind of describes the whole program.
No, iPod or whatever you
Oh,
call it.
iPods?
No, not iPods. You called it some name and it wasn't an A. it was an
iPaws.
I.
iPaws.
Yeah,
How do you-
iPods.
What is that? IPAWS?
Yeah, IPAWS.
iPaws, huh?
Integrated bundle.
Yeah. Let me go.
Like dog food.
Oh, I tell you, we got more acronyms.
What system did they use, like, in Hawaii when there was gonna be that?
We don't want that.
What system did they use?
Guess what?
Same one we
Same one we have.
Yeah.
That's true.
I
It
know.
was late.
Okay, so let me ask you, if you want to look something up, I mean, what's the purpose of iPods to a civilian? Anything?
You know what? Let me hand this out. I should have handed this out earlier. Incidentally, I should also mention too, I don't want to underestimate the role and responsibility of the incident commander. So it's the incident commander who says, send the message out. All right? We're not incident commanders. We're not
Well, that's
supposed.
jargon to me.
That's-
Who's an incident?
That means the
commander?
authority. That means the police chief, fire chief, or whoever's at the scene. Law
Yeah.
enforcement or fire at the scene.
They'll do it.
They tell us or tell 911 to do it. So 911 makes the clicks, and there's dispatch supervisors, 5 of them are trained and authorized, I believe. We're trained down in the EOC
Okay.
and so on. But this is kind of a graphic let me pass this around. And it's just a graphic of what the system involves. So when that goes out, under iPause, your weather radio goes off. I mean, it's a pretty robust system.
Okay, and we already have that on our phones.
You already have that on your
iPause.
phone? If you've got those 4 major carriers, Sprint, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Now, there are other ones that have it, but I don't know what they are.
Boomer? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right, well, I think, let me ask you, I want to ask this. Joe is here and PJ's here. He's the co-chair of the budget committee, and Joe's the guy with the money bags, but the board eventually makes the decision. What, do you have some equipment needs that you need to talk to us about, or does that come into when the 2020 plan is updated? Or, I mean, is there something going on that you don't have ability to fund yourself that you need? I mean, you have grants and so forth and federal stuff.
You know, the needs that we have,
We'll be talking to you about the budget, but I just wonder, a quick capsule of today.
well, one of the things, we've got for us, this sounds silly a little bit, but we have sirens that are encumbered by trees, and we got tree work we got to get done.
Did you say tree?
Trees.
Okay.
And that's expensive.
Trees being cut, you mean? And
Trees being cut, trimmed, and cut back, and I talked to
Jerry Leahy?
Jerry, and I've talked to Tom McDonald and other ones, and that's just one of those things.
Okay.
That's there. We also have half of our sirens. I shouldn't say that. Probably about a third of our sirens have buried underground wiring from the transformer to the siren. Now that's a good thing in the fact that wind working on a wire all the time. You're going to repair your wire, right? So it makes them less vulnerable to wind. But the downside of that is every time somebody puts a fence or something in the ground, they call Digger's Hotline, right? So that's a cost to go out there and do that utility marking, that utility locate. So those are miscellaneous sirens expenses, and so they just, we try to curb those expenses as best we can, and we can. I mean, we do as best we can, but I'm just saying these are little things.
Yeah.
And they are.
Big cost.
But it's just additional costs that over time,
Well, think about that, and when the budget time comes around, let us know. We're not saying you're going to get everything or anything for that matter, but hopefully we can do something about the trees and this digging maybe, to help some way.
Yeah,
So think about those things, Whitney, you too, and we'll
do.
get this
Thank
figured
you.
out.
Well, I will tell you this, for our comparable county, we have a smaller budget and less people. There's no question about that.
Yep.
So we're doing more with less.
Okay, well, we appreciate what you do, and we are going to take up Commissioner Morgan's suggestion, so
Okay.
call
Thank
the
you.
janitor, get the place all cleaned up.
Will do.
No more empty pop bottles and donut boxes or anything like that laying around.
All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you doing a
Thank you.
fine job.
Thank you.
Thank you. 911, what do we think?
Yeah, as you can see, most of the onus of preparedness, planning, and things like that are done on the end of emergency management here. So we're actually just an arm, 911 is an arm for his notifications, or their notifications, which it's important.
Yes.
It's important, just like anything else we're doing it's important business. So what we've done is we've taken a lot of steps to make sure that our equipment we have a lot of redundancy in our telephone system. Of course, our big things are people can get a hold of us and we can get information out to responders. That's our whole sense of what we do. So what are we doing about it? Our telephone system, the Viper system we use, it's called multi-node. It has about 14 layers of redundancy. And when, as you mentioned, Commissioner, when the 911 goes down, you hear around here, in my experience, it's been the wireless providers or the landline company. The landline companies is somebody digs up their landline trunk, their 911 trunks in the ground. That happened a couple of years ago, and of course it made the headlines, 911 down. Well, we were operational, our telephone system was working, and that's the result of our Viper telephone system. Then on the other end, our talk out would be our radio communication system. It's the Orion system we have. It's regional voice public safety communication system. And it has multiple layers of redundancy. It's a P25, which is the latest technology radio system that's out there. It has redundant power sites, and it's also a simulcast system, which is more expensive. But if one of our tower sites, and at the time of my budget presentation, I'm gonna have some slides on this. If one of our tower sites go down, we don't lose the whole system. All of our sites, other sites stay up. And that's very important because there is already some overlap. And if a site does go down, a lot of times the other sites will cover that area. So that's very important. And we just had discussions at the new FITS building. They've actually stepped up some of our redundancy there for our backup temporary power supply and our generator. And the HVAC for the building has its own system separate from the other systems of the building, because the idea being is we don't want to relocate. We don't want to get a tornado warning, we can't leave, we can't go down here. But the ultimate backup for us is our backup site here within this building. And because of the geographical diversity, that's very good. It's far enough away, but not too far away. It's not so far away that it would take us hours and days to activate it. It would take us some time to get staff down here and get it up and running. But it's far enough away that whatever takes out the FITS building or wherever we're at, it's probably a good chance we can still operate here. So in summary, we're basically an arm of emergency management, because as we kept saying, well, 911 does the notifications. They call us up, or the big thing is the incident commander out on the scene says, hey, notify emergency management, we've had a 3-alarm fire, blah, blah, blah. So that's our role, and we've got a lot of redundancy in our system to try to stay up and running and to be able to do that. And in a nutshell, an example of that Hawaii system or any of these alerting systems, the common denominator in the failures a lot of times is human intervention. Person decides, or a personnel decide to hit the wrong button, or the fail-safes that you have in place they ignore, or they go and do something thinking that human intervention this time was erroneous, or they thought was more important. In the case of Hawaii, it was a person made a decision to go over the override, the fail-safe system that was there. So that was human intervention, and I don't know how you'll ever get away from that part of it. Just like at the 911 center, we have a lot of great technology, but it's still, it takes human intervention to activate and make the final decisions. And you just have to train and hope that people do the right things with the training they have and the experience and all the other things you provide to them. So.
Okay. I want to ask you about, anybody else chime right in, but or raise your hand, please. What about staffing? You talked sometime. Are you having difficulty getting staff? Do you need more staff? Do you need what is it?
Well,
you need from
as
us?
an overview, we have 6 openings right now.
Oh wow.
That was as a result of retirements. We had a couple retirements. We had a couple of people, one or two didn't make the training from last time, et cetera, et cetera. We're in the process of filling those. It's taken longer than I'm happy with, and I'll blame that on Ken, and I normally do. But we're going on 4 or 5 months, and we haven't filled the position yet. So, but part of the problem is that we had to do some local validation of our critical testing. This is testing we just started about our last hiring process. It's testing instead of a written test for people to take to be a 911 dispatcher or call taker. It's an interactive, computerized test. Well, if anybody knows what we're doing out there now, there's no papers or pencils used in our process anymore. It's all computerized technology. So this testing, it proved to be in our last round, we had got some really good qualified candidates. So our delay in filling the 6 has been that we had to do the critical testing validated locally. In other words, almost every member of our existing staff had to take this critical test to validate it as is truly a test that reflects what we do. So that's done, finished, and I've gotta give them credit. I think it was Kit that came and did that. To get our place, our operation, she had to come in weekends, holidays, nights, days. Because we had to do while we were working. I couldn't very well pull in a whole shift to come in and on their off time and pay them overtime to take this test. So we would take 1 or 2 a shift. And in all fairness, she did a very good job, and it was a big task. One I wish we wouldn't have had it done, to be truthfully honest with you, because I have used the test in another location, and it was fantastic for 20 years or something. But anyway, that's where we are.
Okay.
Karen just showed me some numbers here. The critical testing was completed, and we've got some applicants, not as many as we'd like. So, of course, my ears peaked up when you were talking about the metro or other ways of doing this. We've just discussed how our advertising is. If there's any other place we could advertise. There again, paper and written media is not how you're getting applicants.
Not anymore.
I even argue that the typing test that we do, a formal typing test, is not at all what we do. Well, first of all, if you look at everybody's text messages, nobody writes in full sentences, abbreviates, or capitalize in a formal manner. Everybody uses little abbreviation stuff like that, and it even gets worse in our business because they're trying to get this information out as fast as they can.
Right.
And an operator puts in talking to people, and just enough so the dispatcher can read it quickly, see it, and go, okay, I got it, we'll get this started. And then they will fill in more information down below. So technology is creating a real specialization here in our industry for call taking and dispatching. It's a specialization that we've created a monster in a way. We're creating a position where there's a lot of specialization and training and things are needed and are going to be needed for the future. And I agree with the doctor and I'm showing my age, the difference in the people that are applying now compared to a generation 2 ago on attendance, what is important to them in the workplace is not the same thing that we looked at. I know when we were talking, retirement and benefits, that, especially the single people, that is not what they're after. Longevity is not what they're after. Promotion, yeah, what they want, hours of work, time off, those kinds of things. That's the most important thing to them that they would ever have. So, capturing those people and making offerings to them that's appealing to them, it's tough in a 24/7 environment to say, hey, yeah, come on in here, and we make people sign forms. You understand you're working the weekends and holidays and Thanksgiving. No problem, I'm here. And they get to the first thing they say is, well, I can't work on that Christmas or Thanksgiving or this or that because this and why can't we work 4 10s or even less days a week? Or the big thing I'm getting now is, can I go on part-time? Or can I go on temp where I work maybe 30 hours a week? So those are things, and they're good candidates. These are not marginal candidates, but I think as we're looking at outside the box, as Commissioner was saying here, I'm not sure how to appeal to these people. I don't have an answer. I'm just throwing it out there. This is what the dilemma is. I'm trying to capture the people that want to do what we want, and what can we offer them to keep them and entice them to come on. And then we can throw in the deal of just like the doctor says, there is stress. And I'm really worried, I'll be truthfully honest with the next generation 911, when it's not that many years out, the call takers or operators are going to get videos and images of an accident where maybe somebody has severed limbs. Okay, we don't get that now. We're sheltered from that, and I'm taking a person off the street and I'm saying, oh, okay, or we see some really bad things on the internet, we're going to start seeing those things there. And we're going to also then have to make decisions on the things that we see very quickly. Is this criminal? Is this something what public safety should go on? Your son or daughter plays a joke and you're laying on the couch taking a nap. Well, somebody's gonna send that to 911. Or it's gonna accidentally go off. What are we gonna do with that? So my thought here is the volume is gonna go up. We're gonna get more calls. They're gonna be of different nature. They're gonna be more, let's say, upfront to the people here. I've worked in public safety all my life, a lot of law enforcement, stuff like that. And I still remember the first time I saw a train wreck and pieces of the people were going around the wheels of the railroad train. And I still remember that. And I was 21, I think, at the time. So what is this going to do when we have people who aren't prepared for this and are going to come on to our workplace and we're going to train them and orientate them? I'm concerned about the next step is what are we going to do to offer some kind of service that would help them cope with these things.
Yeah.
So, but that's where we are,
Okay.
and it was a way elongated response, but I apologize.
When we, I wanted to ask too, and if this isn't an appropriate place for this question, just somebody say so, maybe the lawyer say so, but is there anything we can do, we can use from the systems you heard about locating people and so forth, any way to apply that to a 911 call? Is that appropriate to ask? Okay.
Well, we actually do have one thing going right now, is Alert Sense. It's a alerting system that the county already has, and we already use it. We use it to call out our people in emergencies, to call in.
I'm really talking about if someone in my condo building gets shot and I can't call, I can't say I get shot. And so I call 911, how do you find me? Can you use something we've been talking about today? Can you find me without my
The
information?
notification systems aren't gonna do that. That system is, what we're working on now is an active
going out.
shooter.
Yeah, I understand.
That's going out. It's
Okay.
still coming back to that same issue we've had before, is locating callers.
Okay, well,
It hasn't improved.
Okay, well, I'm a total layman, you know that, so let me ask this layman's question. If Uber can find me or Lyft can find me on a map, why can't we buy that from them? Are they not selling, or is that just totally proprietary?
It's
What's the deal?
because the FCC does not require the wireless providers to give that accuracy. And the people that are requesting the Uber, the pizzas, they give up their location accuracy, much like that, to a wireless provider that goes to the company that's providing the pizzas or the taxi cab. The FCC does not require the wireless provider to give that type of accuracy. They have it, they have that same accuracy as if you're calling in for a pizza. They have it, but they do not require the wireless provider to give that to the 911 center that's responding. I'm sorry, that's just what it comes down to. It's a legislative, executive decision on the part of the FCC. The wireless providers did not want to give that up. I have my own bias. I think they didn't want to give it up because they're selling that location technology to vendors.
Well, why don't we buy it?
Never been offered. It's been asked. They're not going to provide it.
No, but I mean, they provide it to Pizza Hut for a price. Can they provide it to?
I've seen PSAPs or answering points ask for it, never a response. They don't want to.
Okay, well, I know the FCC has ultimate control over wireless, but what about states? Can a state pass a law and say you have to provide this?
I don't believe so. I don't think it's in any of the state's public service commission domain. They could recommend it. I've never heard of a state being able to order them to do it.
I don't think so.
It's a sham and it's a shame. I'm sorry. I don't care about my pizza or my Uber as much as my wife or loved one.
Yeah.
Somebody finding him or her. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, budget time's coming up, and I hope that both of you will think about your HR, I guess you're here too, you gotta be included. Think about some of the needs that you have, which you always do, but it's really important that we have things up to snuff. Paul?
Yeah, before we conclude,
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up just real quick.
Sure.
Number one, our transition to the Fitz home is going to help us.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
that is it's a game changer for us. in a lot of different ways, so that, we look forward to that. On next week is Severe Weather Awareness Week, all right? And this is a Homeland Security project that started back in 2015, but there will be a survey going out to the community. So that we're gonna try to get people to take this community preparedness survey. And based on that survey, we'll be able to assess what the community what their preparedness level is. And so we're looking forward to that. And of course, we got in that survey, what do they think about these needs of notification? How much do they rely on text messages, sirens, social media, that type of thing? That's all in that survey. So that will be going out next week.
Who's that go to?
Everybody in Douglas and Sarpy counties.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's, this will be interesting to see if that, we're gonna try to get our PIO to get that on social media and get that back, so.
Yes.
I just have one more thing. I didn't get to it. I got too wordy, excuse me.
That's all right.
We will be, just so everyone here is in the room is prepared, we will be asking for additional staff. Besides the 6 that we're behind right now, the Omaha Police Department is adding another precinct, which requires a whole new dispatch position in the 911 center. And that's just the growth, and they're going to staff it with additional officers, stuff like that, but we need to have a dispatcher here. They've notified us barely a year ago, they anticipate the first of 2019 to have it operational. To do that, it takes about $250,000, software and hardware, physical positioning, and then we're going to need 6 people to do that.
Wow.
Then on top of that,
So we
we're
pay for
going
the,
to be
we pay for the
asking for-
equipment though, and we pay for the equipment and split the
it's
personnel.
an 85-15
Oh,
split,
not just equipment and everything, 85 split.
yes.
Oh, okay, I thought we paid
So
for
it's
the equipment.
85-15, so 85% is the city's responsibility, 15 is the county's. Am I correct on that, Joe?
Yes.
All that, okay. And then the other part is we're gonna be asking for 6 people to get us up to the staffing level, that what we consider to be minimum staffing. Since I came on duty here, to handle our average, I've got the numbers here, just to give you an idea. In 2017, we took in 2,198 calls, telephone calls a day,
How many?
2,198, and about 70% of those are 911 calls. And we dispatch 1,470 activities a day, police, fire, ambulance, a day.
A day,
To do-
1,500.
Yes. To do that in an efficient manner, our staffing, it requires more than what we have on now.
Okay.
It requires another person on each shift to be a fire dispatcher / emergency medical dispatcher. So I'm going to be asking for those
What's the number on that? It's
6.
6?
Yes, it takes about 5.74 people to
What's the overall
fill a
number?
24/7
That
position.
.74 is hard to find.
What's the overall
No, I
number?
got it, that's fine.
Pardon?
What's the, 200 is the overall number?
For the
Well-
cost of that,
Plus the, I mean, what's the overall number for the machinery plus the 6?
well, you've got a $250,000 in hardware, software for the OPD districts. It's about 280,000 for every 6 dispatchers.
Oh, that's all? Oh, okay.
Salary only, not benefits and everything, just salary's about 280,000.
Yeah,
But
and
there's benefits and everything else.
So what, you looking about 400,000?
so what we're doing, given we know this is coming and we alerted the city of Omaha about this, given the split of cost sharing, so we're gonna make this a collaborative process. So actually we're having our first meeting next week where Patrick and I and Marty Bielek and Steve Curtis are gonna go out and meet with the 911 staff, and they're gonna take us through, because this is something I think that we need to have everybody on board. It's, we
Absolutely.
couldn't say, okay, let's do this in the county finance committee and then maybe call up the city one day and go, oh, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing that, that's good. That's
$1 million, there you go.
Paul?
Just one last thing, I was gonna mention, we have our siren contract for maintenance, you'll be seeing that as our board approval eventually, that's going out, we're getting competitive bids on that, so, that's going out. The typical life expectancy on a siren is about 20 years, and these were installed in about 03, 04, so we're doing some fixing.
Should we blow off those sirens and go with this other system? I mean, you know.
You know, it's not, everywhere you read, that's, at this point in time, you know, everybody's kind of waiting for this November 2019, because that's when this thing really becomes functional. When you get these WIA alerts, you know, they'll be geo-targeted. It's gonna be reassessed, I guess, probably in the early 20s, just to see how the public feels about that.
Well, I think we ought to be prepared to do that. Frankly, I don't know if the sirens are really adequate in the county. That's one of my concerns. I mean, I hear it downtown, but that's not downtown. But I don't know if it is in some of the suburbs. There's a business I just heard about buying at 220th and plowed ground out there. They're moving their business. I don't think there's a siren out there, you know.
You know, our sirens cost us, they cost each homeowner 7 cents a year. So they're not a real, I mean, the maintenance cost is there, but it's
I'm just
not
wondering if they're
obsolete.
If they're obsolete, if it's not a good way to warn
I-
people. Commissioner Morgan has a question.
I was gonna mention, because of, what next week is on the alert, why don't you come to the board and just, if Chris is okay, put it on the agenda. So
About
that
that
you can
survey
come
that-
and then it'd be on the TV next week.
Maybe the people would,
Well, the other thing I was.
That way it gets a message out. I know you're doing the
Thank you
social
for that.
network. I think it'd be great to have them come for 5 minutes and talk about that.
10 more people that know.
I don't
Bring
know,
this too.
I'm too late though, aren't I? Or can it just be an
No.
open item?
You're
We
right.
can put it on tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you want it under, what do you want me to
What
title
did you
it?
call it, the week?
Community
Severe Weather
preparedness.
Awareness Week.
Yeah, it's
Week.
Severe Weather Awareness Week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should mention it.
We have a information officer now that we need to have you get in touch with and have her contact the media and get this out in a lot better form than what they usually do.
Yeah, that's great.
So Leah's there, she works for us.
That would be good.
That'd be fine.
And we'll be downstairs to see you, and we'll stay in touch with you and come out and see how things are going on.
Absolutely,
Coffee pot's always on, right?
absolutely.
Any other
Okay.
questions, comments? I want to thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, we'll do it again sooner this time.
Paul, you just wanna come under presentations on
That'd be
Tuesday?
fine, yeah.
And we'll call it that week. Weather.
Severe Weather
Awareness
Awareness Week
Week.
presentation.
The sirens are going off on Wednesday.
And spotter training on Thursday.
Oh, they will, so we should.
What's that?
Spotter training is on Thursday.
And spotter train, we're doing our storm spotter training
So what time
Tuesday,
will they go off Wednesday?
about 10:15.
Okay, that'll be good. They'll be going.
That'll be good.
Yeah, and then, talk about some of the people that we have.
Oh, all right.
Can use the same